Happy New Year's, amazing people. We've got demos. It's the beginning of the year. We'll start with Scott.
Hey everybody. So I'm just going to show off some stuff we did in the last week and lead into John's demo because they're kind of connected together. He had to remind me that I did this because the last week of December was 100 years ago as far as I'm concerned. But one thing that we went through and did is we have like a lot of these individual applications like SDF, Pinga, all these different things, and we need to be able to configure them from the command line in order to run them in ECS or wherever we choose to run them. And a lot of them need files injected into them, be they certificates or various credentials, like whatever they are. So one thing we did last week was basically go through, and any time we needed a file, we needed to be able to pass it in on the command line as a base 64 string. So it's not the most exciting thing in the world to see, but there's a few different places where this shows up. So I just have like the help from SDF here, and you can see like we have this Nats creds, which takes in like the credentials for Nats as a string. We have the Postgres cert as a base 64 string. Some of the Cyclone secrets that are required as a base 64 string. So basically every single place where we needed a file, we can now pass it in as a base 64 string. And this is on like SDF and Pinga and pretty much everywhere. The one that's still kind of work in progress is the Postgres. Adding SSL to that was a little tricky. It works now, and I'm actually just going to prove that in a second, but that all works. The only thing that's not working is the launcher, and the tests are currently failing because I need to actually go tell them to incorporate the cert. So I should have that up probably later today or early tomorrow. And just to kind of show it, I added SSL to our Postgres container that we use for local development, just to prove that we actually use it. And then you can see when this connects, it like does it over SSL, it has it enabled. You can see it's TLS 1.3. And there it is. So that's pretty much what we got going on. What's really cool about this part is this is the lead in for us to be able to use Aurora instead of Postgres RDS. So once this gets wrapped, we can hopefully try out Aurora and see if it works. That's basically it.
Very cool. How 12-factor app of us to take all the stuff from the files and make them environment variables. That's great. All right, John, let's see what you've got.
Happy New Year, everyone. Let me present this bit of my screen. So basically what we did it does seem like ages ago from, I agree with Scott there. I was trying to remember what I did, but we managed to get basically satisfy all the environment variables constraints and other things to make the services ECS compatible. So Scott pulled out a bit of a stormer in the last week, but ECS didn't support mounting secrets as a file on the file system. So that's why we had to do the command lag flag kind of operability thing. What we've got here is then a diagram that explains how we're going to host this for our first production pass, and that in the last week of last year, we validated that it works. So we have 4 ECS services. So we've got Web, SDF, Pinga, and Council all running in ECS. And then Veritech with the metal function execution nodes then running in an auto scaling group. And this is just, it's regional at the minute. So it's within US East 1. If you think about how a user would access, sorry, I should cover actually, and then we're using managed NATs. And for those who aren't as infrastructure au fait, it's not like a NAT gateway, it's a service called NATs, like a messaging service. So how would a customer access our service? They would come in through this CloudFront distribution, which would hit a publicly exposed load balancer, and then it would be routed by default to the web application. That would then load the web JavaScript in their browser, and then all the other requests to populate the content on the page would come back out through and would hit the API endpoint, which would pull from SDF. They'd be the only 2 routes into our infrastructure. As Scott mentioned, he's working on the final bits to make SSL work, which is what we need for Aurora and to be generally safe. So we've proof of concepted this basically with just standard RDS, but it'll be Aurora when we actually do the real one. If I show this in ECS, you can see these are the 4 services, just currently one task running just to kind of make sure that we've checked it works. And then more excitingly, this is the actual service. So that would be me hitting web and then all the content being populated from the API endpoint. So very simple demo, but if I do a little bit of copy paste action, I can do like, I don't know, Nginx. And then, I don't know, I'll make this one not work. So what's happening there is the functions are being executed in Veritech, which is running on Metal in their own little boxes. And then it's reporting the result back to NATS. So you can see here that this qualifies as fail because an image called John doesn't exist. And this one should pass because Nginx does exist. So not a very exciting test, but it basically demonstrates that all the services tie together correctly and that we can execute at a very basic level our product, I guess.
Oh, wait, so this is that whole stack you showed us running?
Yeah, this
wow.
So this endpoint is the whole thing. So I'm going in through the ALB here. So that's the ALB endpoint.
Right.
Here.
And these functions ran on that Metal node that Veritech's running on.
I would love to show you like through an observability pane, like the Veritech logs or something, but you can see here that we haven't actually plugged it in. It was just kind of proof of concepting I don't know, the whole thing ties together correctly. But in reality, we'll have some kind of observability dashboard that would let me show you that where it executed, and it would show you the traces and stuff for the function that was executed.
Oh, that's super cool. This is awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. That is me.
Wow. Yeah. Exciting stuff. You know, the next question is, when are we going to be ready for our first customer? But I guess we'll leave that till next time. Or of time in the future. Nick, I guess you're last. Let's go.
Yep. All right. If for the new year, I wanted to do more engine stuff in the UI, not the code, so you all can see the app. And I'm going to celebrate that by showing you something in the code because it wasn't ready for the UI. This was done in 2 days before the break, but we now have connections between components in the new engine, which is the connections including the attribute values for each, which is super awesome. This demo is more internally for us, which is really cool. I could show you how it works just like before. You get your schema variant that you want. Let's grab Docker. Let's grab butane. We've done this before. And I was hoping to show you this in the front end, but I ran into a few bugs, so I'd rather show you something that 100% works. You grab the external provider container image for butane. That's the output socket side. And you grab the explicit internal provider for butane, external provider for Docker image. We may rename these input and output sockets someday. Who knows? You create a component for each. And now there is no concept of edges and no concepts of connections. They're both gone with the new graph. What you do is you perform a component connection, and it will just create an attribute prototype argument new inner component. The names for these things may shift and change, but essentially a diagram edge is going to be 1-to-1 with an attribute prototype argument, which, by the way, is how it currently works on main. And it's a lot simpler of a system rather than like 500 so lines of code. This got a lot smaller. When you create an intercomponent attribute prototype argument, you essentially just create an edge between the external provider and the attribute prototype. And inside the edge itself, you just store which component each side is coming from. So source and destination component just have this metadata on it. And we're really excited because once we get this working in the UI, we're one step closer to being able to use dependent values update. But that is how edges are going to work in the new graph. Way simpler interface. The front end should have a one-to-one API with it. Been working with Theo on that as well. And that concludes my underwhelming demo, which will hopefully be more whelming next week.
Okay, a lot of good stuff. Let's have an amazing 2024.